Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we explore the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering clear explanations of their meanings and unique cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, and it is so great to be back here with you all today. We have a really incredible song to look at.
We really do. But first, please note that while the voices and illustrations in this video are AI generated, the project itself is run by two Japanese creators living in Japan. The script is carefully researched and written by us to provide original explanations.
All right, so what kind of journey are we taking today?
Well, I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine this 14-year-old introspective Japanese rock song, a track that was specifically written about the crushing career anxiety of Japanese teenagers, and it suddenly becomes the global unofficial anthem for a traditional 17th century boat race in Indonesia.
Right.
And it happened purely by accident.
I mean, it sounds like an internet fever dream, but it actually happened.
Yeah.
It is just a perfect testament to how, rhythm and raw emotion can completely bypass language barriers. Like, a song written for a highly specific cultural moment in Japan ended up speaking to millions of people around the world simply through its chaotic, addictive energy.
Okay, let's unpack this. The song we are exploring the lyrics of today is Yoru no Odoriko, which translates to the dancer of the night.
Right, yeah.
It was released back in 2012 by the massive Japanese band Sakanaction. The frontman, Ichiro Yamaguchi, originally wrote this track for a TV commercial.
Wait, really? A commercial?
Yeah. The client was actually a famous Japanese vocational school that trains students in fashion, makeup, and creative fields. Yamaguchi wanted to create a guiding thread for young people who were, standing at the edge of adulthood, completely paralyzed by anxiety over their future careers.
And he chose such a fascinating way to express that anxiety musically. If you listen to the track, you will immediately notice this jarring but brilliant collision of styles.
Yeah, the contrast is huge.
Exactly. Sakanaction uses traditional Japanese musical scales, specifically pentatonic scales, that skip certain half steps, which gives the melody this really earthy, ancient folk song feel.
Right.
It mimics the deliberate, almost heavy movements of traditional Japanese dance.
Yeah.
But then, and this is the crazy part, they slam that ancient melody right into a blistering hyper-electro club beat.
It's completely dizzying. You have this 120 beat per minute synthesizer bass driving the song, but the melody feels like it's from a century ago. And they doubled down on that cultural collision with the title itself, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Because The Dancer of the Night is a direct homage to Yasunari Kawabata's legendary 1926 novel, The Dancing Girl of Izu.
Right, and for those who aren't familiar with that novel, it basically follows a deeply melancholic, isolated student from Tokyo,
right,
who travels to the Izu Peninsula.
Yeah.
And there he meets a pure-hearted, traveling teenage dancer. Her simple, unburdened presence essentially cures his depression. And the official music video for Sakanaction's song leans heavily into this surreal blend. It was directed by Yusuke Tanaka, and it features the band in full glam makeup, wearing traditional kimono, just playing their instruments at the foot of Mount Fuji alongside a classical dancer.
It brings us to the 2026 phenomenon.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how this song experienced an explosive global revival 14 years after its release. In the spring of 2026, a creator in South Korea took the high-speed, hyper-electro tempo of Yoru no Odoriko and paired it with a video clip from Riau, Indonesia.
And honestly, the video clip is just stunning. It's footage of the Pacu Jalur, which is a traditional Indonesian boat race where dozens of rowers are paddling this massive, narrow canoe made from a single tree trunk.
Right.
But the focus of the video is on the very front of the boat. There's a young boy standing right on the bow, cutting through the water at terrifying speeds, completely exposed to the wind, and he is just dancing his heart out.
Yeah, and in the context of the Pacu Jalur, that boy isn't just goofing off for the camera. He is known as the Tukang Tari.
Oh, so he has a specific role.
Exactly. His dancing movements physically communicate the paddling rhythm to the dozens of rowers behind him. He is literally the navigator of their rhythm. But when the internet paired this fearless, joyful visual with Sakanaction's addictive beat, it created a massive cross-cultural meme. It dominated TikTok and YouTube Shorts globally.
It got so big that Ichiro Yamaguchi himself actually danced to it on a YouTube live stream.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, which then pushed this 14-year-old song all the way up to number 7 on the Japanese streaming charts. But here's the thing, to truly understand why this song has such infectious border-crossing energy, we have to look past the meme and closely examine the words that drive it.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the very first phrase. Cultural nuance. We bounced, we bounced, we bounded.
So if you look up the word haneta, a dictionary will tell you it means to jump or to bound. But the Japanese nuance goes deeper than just the physical act of getting your feet off the ground. It implies a bounding heart. It paints a picture of an explosion of emotion that has finally reached a boiling point and overflowed.
Wait, I'm a bit lost on the context here. If this song is about students who are deeply anxious about their future careers, why are they spending their nights bouncing around in a club? Shouldn't they be, studying or preparing for job interviews?
I mean, that is a very logical question, but it ignores the psychological reality of the Japanese job hunting system, which is known as shukatsu.
Right, the job hunting season.
Yeah, it is an incredibly rigid, high-pressure, uniform process. These young people are just suffocating under expectations. So the repetitive phrasing here, haneta, haneta, mimics the looping bass drum of club music. They aren't in the club to celebrate, they're there for mental survival.
Oh, wow.
They're dancing wildly in the dark, actively trying to bounce the anxiety out of their physical bodies.
Ah, I see. Is this repetitive bouncing almost like a heartbeat syncing with a club's bass drum to literally drown out their own anxious thoughts?
That is a great way to put it. They are losing themselves in the rhythm, because the physical exhaustion of bouncing is the only thing that temporarily numbs the heavy pressure of the daylight world.
And that physical rhythmic bouncing naturally has to evolve, right? I mean, you can't just jump in place forever.
Right.
It solidifies into something heavier. Which brings us to the second phrase.
Yeah.
Cultural nuance. Taking steps heavy enough to shake the night city.
So the verb yurasu means to shake. But we aren't just talking about the floorboards of a nightclub vibrating under heavy boots.
Right.
Yurasu carries the psychological meaning of throwing a heavy stone into stagnant waters. It means to disrupt the status quo, to shake up existing rules and challenge a rigid atmosphere.
It's almost like a silent earthquake. They aren't rioting in the streets or breaking windows. Their rebellion is entirely channeled through dance.
Exactly.
But how does this shaking actually affect the sleeping adult world around them? Like, are the adults even noticing?
In reality, probably not. The adults are fast asleep, entirely indifferent to the struggles of the youth. But metaphorically, the closed-off sleeping city represents the rigid societal structures waiting for them.
Oh, I see.
By stepping this heavily in the dark, these young people are engaging in a silent rebellion. Carving out a space on the dance floor is their way of screaming, "We exist!" It is the release of pent-up energy against massive, uncertain walls.
Which implies that even though they're stomping on the ground of the present reality, their minds are actually intensely focused on the future.
Yes, exactly.
That brings us to our third phrase, cultural nuance, to the far side of the unseen future.
This is where the introspective brilliance of Sakanaction really shines. Madaminu translates to the unseen, or the yet to be encountered. It is a beautifully wistful, romantic phrase.
Yeah, it really is.
It acknowledges the terror of the unknown, the darkness of their career anxiety, but it shows a refusal to be paralyzed by it.
So what does this all mean? How does a wistful phrase fit into a frantic club beat?
It creates a fascinating duality. On the surface, the hyper-electro beat is making you sweat, but the lyrics are pulling you into deep self-reflection. Yamaguchi talked about this song being a thread.
Right, for the students.
Yeah. Despite the darkness, they are using the heavy rhythm of the dance to pull themselves toward a new frontier. They're trying to reach a place on the other side of their anxiety that no one has mapped out yet.
It's a brilliant sleight of hand. You think you're just listening to a fun dance track, but subconsciously, you're absorbing a manifesto about breaking boundaries.
And when you start pulling that thread toward an unseen future, it inevitably forces something very deep inside you to surface. You can't reach a new frontier while holding on to your old pretenses.
Exactly.
And that leads directly into the fourth phrase.
Let's look at what surfaces.
Yeah.
Cultural nuance. The hidden emotions are now awakening.
So the phrase meo samasu literally means to wake up, to open one's eyes. But in this context, it implies a violent snap back to reality. It's an awakening of the senses.
Oh, wow.
Think about the daily life of these students. During the peaceful, ordinary daylight hours, they are required to suppress their true feelings. They have to hide their loneliness, their frustration, and their unique passions just to fit into the mold of a proper adult.
They basically have to wear a mask of conformity to survive the daylight?
Precisely. But the moment the heavy bass drops in the club, the vibration shatters that mask. All those suppressed, hidden emotions are violently unleashed.
Wow.
This raises an important question.
Oh.
It flips our entire understanding of day and night. Society conditions us to believe that daytime is for living and nighttime is for resting.
Right.
But for these youths, the daytime is when they are asleep numb, acting out of script, ignoring their own desires. The nightlife, bathed in neon and loud music, is the only time they are truly awake.
That's a huge perspective shift.
It makes you reflect on your own life. When do you, as the listener, feel most truly awake? Is it during your 9-to-5 routine, or is it in those rare, unguarded moments when you finally let go of expectations?
That's a heavy thought. I think a lot of us can relate to sleepwalking through our professional lives. But let's follow the logic here. If they are suddenly wide awake in the club and all this suppressed frustration, anger, and exhaustion is bubbling up to the surface, where does it go? You can't just hold on to that negative energy.
You're absolutely right. They have to process it somehow. And the fifth phrase explains exactly how they manage that mental detox.
Cultural nuance. Drowned out by the sound, my sighs vanish.
Let's break down the vocabulary here. Magirero means to blend in, to become indistinguishable from your surroundings. And tameki means a sigh.
Okay.
In Japanese culture, a sigh isn't just exhaling air. It is a heavy symbol of fatigue, disappointment, and sometimes a shameful admission of weakness. Letting out a sigh in public is often seen as bringing the mood down.
It's the audible sound of the weight of the world crushing your shoulders.
Yes. So what do? They toss those signs of weakness into the roaring torrent of the music. By screaming or sighing in the middle of a loud club, their exhaustion becomes completely indistinguishable from the heavy bass and the synthesizers.
Wow.
They are actively erasing their own fatigue by blending it into the noise.
It's like using music as emotional camouflage. Does the loud club music act as a sort of armor against the absurdity and harshness of reality?
It is their absolute shield. This is a very gritty, realistic portrait of urban youth. They aren't going to a quiet room to cry and wallow in their sadness. They are actively managing their despair through the sheer, deafening volume of the club. They are using the noise to execute a psychological detox so they can survive another day.
And once they are armed with this musical shield, once their sighs are erased, the central figure of the song can finally take center stage and make a decisive move. Let's look at the sixth phrase.
Yeah.
Cultural nuance. The dancer spreads her arms and cuts through the darkness.
The imagery takes a very sharp turn here with the word kirisaku, which means to forcefully slit open or cut to pieces. It invokes the visual of a sharp, gleaming blade.
That's intense.
It is. And here is where we must return to Kawabata's novel, The Dancing Girl of Izu. Remember, in that classic story, the pure-hearted dancer saves the melancholic student from his own depression.
So the dancer in the song, the Odoriko, is acting as a modern-day savior.
Exactly. She is a metaphor for a guiding light. By physically spreading her arms and dancing with reckless abandon, she's acting as a blade, cutting a path through the suffocating anxiety of the room so the lost youths can follow her.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about that 2026 internet meme we talked about at the beginning.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the synchronicity is genuinely goosebump-inducing. Let's look at the lyrics from 2012. A dancer spreads her arms and acts as a blade, cutting through the dark obstacles. Now fast forward to 2026. What visual captured the attention of the entire world?
A young Indonesian boy, acting as the tukang tari, standing at the very front of a fast-moving wooden boat, spreading his arms wide, and literally cutting through the thrilling headwinds to guide his rowers.
Yes.
He is the exact visual embodiment of the lyric. He is fearless, joyful, and leading the way. The internet somehow intuitively matched the core metaphorical meaning of a 14-year-old Japanese lyric with a completely unrelated, real-world cultural event in Indonesia.
It proves that human emotion and rhythm are universally understood languages.
Absolutely.
The physical act of breaking through resistance, whether it's the physical wind on a river in Riau or the crushing psychological anxiety of a sleeping Nagasaki in Japan, feels exactly the same to the human spirit. The dancer in the club and the boy on the boat are doing the exact same job.
It's honestly breathtaking when you lay it out like that, but as empowering as this action of cutting through the darkness is, it inevitably triggers a timer.
Right.
They can't stay in the dark forever. Which brings us to our seventh and final phrase, cultural nuance. Before the morning comes, we will arrive.
The crucial word to understand here is tadoritsuku. It translates to arriving at a destination, but it has a very specific, desperate nuance. It doesn't mean taking a pleasant stroll and arriving punctually.
Oh, what does it imply?
Tadoritsuku implies getting lost, crawling through the mud, fighting your way through exhaustion, and finally collapsing across the finish line.
And the finish line they're racing against is the morning.
Yes. The morning represents the unavoidable return of reality. It is the end of their neon sanctuary.
Right.
The moment the sun comes up, the club closes, the music cuts out, and the societal pressures regarding their careers come crashing back down on them. That is why the song's climax is so frantic. The hyper-electro sound perfectly captures the panicked urgency of needing to find an answer, or at least a sense of internal peace before the night ends.
It really feels like a modern Cinderella story. But instead of a magical carriage turning back into a pumpkin at midnight, it's their temporary freedom turning back into suffocating societal anxiety at dawn. Will they find their answer in time? Do they actually arrive?
The song doesn't give us a definitive answer, and that tension is what drives the entire track.
Yeah.
They're pulling on Yamaguchi's thread, dancing wildly, using the dancer to cut through the darkness, just hoping that the physical and emotional exhaustion of the night will yield some clarity before the sun rises.
Taking a step back and looking at this entire lyrical journey, it really is a masterpiece of songwriting.
It truly is. To summarize the emotional weight of what we've covered, Sakanaction's Yoru no Odoriko effortlessly fuses traditional Japanese aesthetics and literature with the cutting-edge aggression of club music. It manages to capture the highly specific introspective career anxiety of Japanese youth in 2012.
Right.
Yet miraculously, that specific emotional frequency was able to cross oceans and time.
It connected seamlessly with the overwhelming visual dynamism of a boy dancing on an Indonesian boat 14 years later.
Exactly. This beautiful collision proves the universal power of rhythm. It shows us that the desire to shake off our anxieties, to aggressively cut through the darkness, and to desperately find our way before the morning comes is a shared human experience. It is a rhythm that continues to make hearts bounce all over the world.
It really leaves you with a profound question to reflect on. When the morning finally does come in your own life and the music inevitably stops, does the energy of the night just fade away? Or does the rhythm of the dancer of the night continue to pulse within you, giving you the strength to face the daylight?
That's a great thought to leave on.
Thank you so much for listening. We feature various Japanese songs and provide detailed explanations on our website. Please check the link in the description to explore more. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts or song requests in the comments. See you next time.
This was Japan Lyric Room.